Yo, 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 what's up? It is Friday night. We're going live. We got a few things to cover. We've got my guy Vinny Blond joining us. What's up, Vinny?
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we got a couple things to cover real quick. We got some breaking news. We're gonna give everybody a couple seconds to jump on. Millions of people around the world need this information. So what's new, man? We're jumping into Kentucky Derby Triple Crown prep season, which is one of the favorite times of the year for most horse racing fans. What are you looking forward to most, I guess, here in the spring?
Just separating out who's actually going to be a main contender, really. The first few, been tracking a few of them for probably a few months now, watching their workouts, and they finally start racing at 3, and we kind of get to see who made the jump, who's worth following, who's going to be a major threat on what circuit. I think Asmussen had one today at Oaklawn, that one, I'm trying to remember the name. It was like Chasing Time or something like that, I believe.
That rings a bell. I didn't.
Yeah,
I wasn't paying attention. I was very busy today with.
Yeah, he had somebody win. Yeah, he had somebody win today at Oaklawn. That was a very impressive winner. A first time 3-year-old going 2 turns. So, and I believe I saw the connection say they're going to point that one towards the Rebel. So
he's got an arsenal this year, Asmussen, I think.
He always has he's one of those guys. He always gets a nice bar, and it just depends on. Usually he ends up with a bunch of mid-tier horses, and they don't. He doesn't get what Baffert gets or what Pletcher gets. But maybe if they really don't let Baffert run, maybe it's his year.
Yeah, maybe. So a couple things to cover. We're going to talk about Tour de Force. We've got 50 plus entries now paid, and that's going to be awesome this spring. If you don't know what that is, so it's a handicapping tournament that goes basically from January 22nd next weekend, starting with the LeCompte, going all the way through the Triple Crown. And it's 25 races individually scored, and it's $50 to enter, and it's a lot of fun. There'll be prizes paid back for the top, probably depending on how many entries we have finishing up here. We will go between 6 and 8, top 6 and 8 finishers, plus weekly prizes for the top performances per round. So that's going to be awesome. I'll show you the schedule for that shortly, and that'll also cover the other topic we're going to talk about, which is we were lucky enough to sign Vinny here a global 2022 contract. Congratulations. He has been signed, sealed, and delivered. He is now a multi-millionaire. So
I wish.
He's on Trust the Profits for a weekly show we're going to do, and the focus is going to be on the prep season, obviously. And here we go. Vinny, Prep Talk with Vinny Blond is going to be a weekly show. We're going to try to do it, every Thursday we're targeting, or Wednesday?
Yeah, Wednesday or Thursday. Targeting depends on when the tracks get the past performances out with the entries for the races. I'm expecting it to be record on Wednesdays, probably release on Thursdays.
Yeah, man, that's going to actually be awesome because, if you follow our channel at all, we've gotten most of our followers and a lot of our fan base, if you want to call it that, from our top 10 videos and the things we put out in that regard. I think Vinny is one of the best in the business about the in-depth, deep diving a specific race from race to race. And also it goes hand in hand with the Tour de Force, which is the tournament that we're hosting. So that's a good fit. And you'll get some post position analysis, deep dive into each of those races. So that's going to be fun, man. So looking forward to that.
I'm excited, and I'm hoping this year I can win the whole thing. I was in second for 90% of last year, and I finished in second. So
yeah, you lost to one big hit by one big.
Yep, I lost the one big
trifecta.
Yep, I lost the one big hit, and I made a little ground up in it, but I just couldn't. I missed the Derby, and I missed the Preakness, and that was I wasn't catching them after missing those two.
Would you have hit the Derby though if The drug test.
No, I wouldn't have hit it. I think what I did if I remember correctly, what I did in the tour was I played a giant trifecta, keying essential quality on top of pretty much everybody. So if he had won, I would have hit it, and I don't know if I would have made up the ground, but that's what you had to do towards the end because he was up by, I forget who he was, but he was up by
Matt
so
Hensing.
yeah, he was
Matt
up by
Hensing, who has
yeah.
he's back for season 3 by the way.
He was up by so much that it was like I was doing good in the beginning playing the $100 win bets and they were hitting, but it was like towards the end, it was like, you're down a couple $1,000 and you got to play the exotics to catch up. So,
yep. And the fun part about this is, if you've never done it, is that it's $50 to enter, and you basically get from now until June to sit here and compete with some of the better handicappers in the country. And it's literally, for your $50 investment, you get to play every one of the big races, at least take part in it and see how you stack up against some of the better handicappers without spending a bunch of money. Because if you're betting these individually, which most of us are doing on the side as well, but that can be very expensive if you're not doing well. It's a cheap way to compete for the whole prep season, and get to take part in every round. So with that, let's pull up here. I've got the schedule for the tour, and let's go ahead and zoom in on this thing for you. And I don't know, Vinny, we can maybe talk a little bit about early on in the year here, what's coming up. We got Lecomte's the first one, followed by the Southwest. I mean, when do you think? Here's the thing. We know that, if you follow the Derby preps year to year, a lot of times you'll see those first, I'm going to call it 7 rounds there, are kind of, you're starting to get introduction to who's who, but things don't really start getting serious until about when for you?
It's tough. Usually, at least for the Midwest and the East Coast horses, usually that mid-February mark with the Risen Stars when you start seeing them. Out west. I mean, it depends on the whole Baffert situation, but he usually his horses that usually run in the Robert B. Lewis are usually end up being good. I mean, Newgrange dominated the Sham, and I believe he's pointing to the Robert B. Lewis now, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so if he stays with Baffert's barn, that's I feel like with the exception of Baffert, the horses that run in those 10-point prep races usually don't end up being much of anything. And sadly, usually if connections at this point know they have a good horse, they usually run in the 50-point preps is kind of when they come back into it. So right. the Risen Star, the Rebel, the Fountain of Youth, those are kind of the big 3 where you start seeing some separation. And then obviously as you get your way down to your 100-point preps, then you really know who's who. But I mean, I think what was it last
that April 2nd, or actually by the time you hit March 26th in there with the Louisiana Derby, Tampa Bay Derby, some of those there.
And what was it? I think it was the Gotham last year that was the big hit, I think, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, you had who won that race, because it was a
Wayburn.
Bomb. Yes, yeah.
Wayburn won, and whoever came in second, and he had the $8 exacta box or something like that in the tour, and it won him the whole thing, and so that's
Matt Hensing became a legend on that day.
Yep. So yeah, and so then you have to, but yeah, those are the races that I mean, especially the middle part there, that early stretch in March there with the Rebel, the Fountain of Youth, and the Tampa Bay Derby. I'm always a big fan of the Tampa Bay Derby. So
yeah, the fun part too is up until that point, you mentioned the Gotham, which is round 11 this year, is probably something similar last year. Matt Hensing had 0 points. I mean, just absolutely abortion clinic of a performance up through round 10. I seriously think he had $0. So 0 winnings, and then he grenades the Gotham, goes from 0 to the points leader. And by the way, at that point, he had double of what everybody else had combined. Yeah. So
And like I said, I think I
Oh,
made
keep
up a
going,
little.
man.
I made up a little ground on him. I think he only ended up beating me by like 1,400, and he was up by like $2,000 on me basically the whole meet. But like it was just like I couldn't. The other issue was is that like some of the races I was playing for bombs, and there were just no bombs coming in because especially by the end of the prep season, I mean we got to this like we got to the Florida Derby, the Santa Anita Derby, and the Bluegrass, and
And
you knew you
it
knew
kind of went
right.
how it was supposed to go.
Right. You knew it was going to win. So it's like, you only can make up so much ground. And he was doing the same, he was playing smart and just blocking. It was
Yeah,
just
once he
like,
got that lead, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
you just play him, you play what you think everybody else is going to play. At that point, he didn't need any money. And he just, he wrote it out and good for him. But yeah, I'm hopefully I can have as good of a performance as I did last year. Cause I think I had both of my entries at one point, I think both my entries were in the top 5, and I think they both finished in the top 10 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I think I
yeah,
finished
for
like
sure.
2nd and 8th.
Yep, that sounds right, and that was a big part of the reason why we brought you on for the prep talk, the weekly prep talk, which will be again. I think we're gonna do it on Thursdays. We'll probably release them on Thursdays because we have to wait until if anybody follows us closely, you got to wait for the post position draw, which is usually on Wednesdays or Thursday mornings, usually Wednesdays, and we'll get it recorded, pushed out as quick as we can, probably on Thursdays. Give you a couple days to get ready for the races, and we're gonna try to hit every one of them. So it should be fun, man. I'm looking forward to it. So we talked a little bit before we jumped on here, Vinny. Let's talk about Santa Anita today because it sounded like you had a great time.
Oh God, it was rough. I had my early pick. One of my key horses in my early pick 5 scratched, and I scratched into a favorite that I didn't like. And that favorite ended up losing to a horse who I left off my ticket because of the horse I originally played in that race. So the first horse off my ticket ended up beating me because I scratched into a bad favorite. And I absolutely hate scratching in the favorites. I wish they let you pick alternates again because they used to do that long before. They used to do that before I was old enough to play, apparently. They used to allow you to play alternates on tickets at tracks. But
the
they
thing
don't.
is, dude, and I'll be honest, when it comes to scratching, especially in the middle of a pick 5 or something like that, that has never, and I'm telling you that I've been doing this for 20 years, it has never worked in my favor. Maybe one time on like a minor, I think I hit I'll take that back. I think I hit a pick 4 that was worth like maybe $150 one time. And because of the scratch that went to the favorite, due to the rules, it doubled my ticket. And instead of winning 150, I won 300 or something minor like that. But every other time that's ever happened to me, it's like, okay, there's the end of it for me.
Yeah, and it's like if you don't have that, it's like if you don't have that like it's one of those situations where it's like if I had the favorite on my ticket and I lost, I would be like, all right, like
yeah,
I get
exactly.
the fact I tossed him when I made the bet, and it's just like
I went
this is how it
5 deep
goes.
here. I went 5 deep here, and I didn't have I had the morning line favorite included with the 5 deep. He doesn't win, so the tickets were double, but it does me no good because the horse I scratched, like you said today, might have been the one that I liked the most, but it just never seems to work out.
Yeah, it was like I mean
Bummer.
I think a lot of people are still scarred from the Breeders' Cup there with modern games. Because
Yeah,
there was one that I know I did and a bunch of my friends did. We had him singled in our pick 5s, and there he goes
dude, I
and
was hanging
win.
from the rafters.
There he goes and wins easily, and we're stuck with Danny Gargan horse who gets bet down and ends up going off the favorite. And it's like it wasn't a bad horse, but I would like nobody. I don't think anybody ever actually thought that horse was going to win, and it was just like.
Luckily, I had friends over my house that night because I seriously had rope wrapped around my neck and I was trying to end it all that night.
I have a buddy. I still have a buddy who hasn't played who hasn't been a single race since. He was alive. He was alive to like a few $1,000s to modern games, and they scratched him and just ruined everything. Yep, exactly. And then they let him run, and not only did he win,
the most ridiculous.
Not only did he win, he won for fun.
Is there anything positive that came from him running? I mean, I know it was for the purse money for the ownership team, whatever.
No.
So you're going to piss off
I mean, the best
2 billion people across the world.
I mean, the
Which,
best
by the way,
horse
I don't know
won.
one person who benefited from that either, other than the
No.
ownership team.
No. I mean, the best horse won.
Congratulations, you pissed off 2/3 of the country of horse racing fans.
Yeah, that was
probably
just
9/10 of the horse racing fans.
yeah,
Ridiculous.
that was just a bad scenario. But yeah, I mean, like that's
I made
kind
a
of
drunk
not as
rant video over that and everything else. Dude.
yeah, not as bad as it was. That was worse than it was today. But that was kind of like PTSD of flashbacks. Like here we go again. I scratch into a horse that like I personally I mean the horse ran better than I thought he would, but like on paper I'm like I don't like this horse at all. And he almost won. He only lost by like a head, dude, but it was still
that wrecked every sequence. Look, I had a mutual fund and wrecked every sequence. Everything wrecked my whole day. And I was having a great night up until that. For once on a Breeders' Cup Friday, I was having a great night. So I don't know. So anyway, Vinny, you still here? Looks like you froze.
Yeah. Oh, wait. We're back yet?
You back at it?
Am I back yet?
Yeah. Yep. It's kind of sketchy.
Sorry. That was weird. Yeah, that was weird. Yeah, you froze for a second on my screen, and then I froze on my own screen. Sorry about that.
No, we're good. So what else are we talking about? What else are we excited about this year compared to last? We've got obviously all the drama with Baffert, which nobody really wants to talk about, but
I hope Churchill stands their ground, and I hope they don't let him run, because that's just going to get. I think it's just going to get messy. I really,
dude. Yeah, you have to draw the line. We talked about this last year. I mean, even before all the drama with Medina Spirit, we talked about this last year. It was like you have to. What was it? I compare. All I can do is compare it to the Barry Bonds era. Barry Bonds was at the time, and Mark McGwire and all those guys. Those were my heroes growing up, dude. And like, you have to drop the hammer on the guys that, those are the biggest names of the sport at the time. If you want to change the game and stop the steroid stuff, which I guess needed to happen. I don't know. It was kind of exciting to watch or whatever. But hey, if you want to stop it, dude, you got to break the balls of the people who are the most important. And Baffert's that guy. And I don't know.
I just hope it holds up in court, because that's what I'm worried. That's honestly what I'm worried about. I mean, he did it with Naira, where he took Naira to court, and Naira didn't at what they originally claimed. They didn't have a leg to stand on, so then they had to let him run. I mean, good thing he didn't do fantastic at Saratoga, but at the same time, it's like, like if he doesn't, like, I just think it's going to get messy if this whole thing isn't figured out by the time, like the 10-point preps. Okay. But I feel like if for some reason, like the rule, like a judge reverses the ruling and tells Churchill that they have to let him run, all of a sudden you have these horses like Newgrange, Corniche. I think he's got a couple other ones who at the moment have no Derby points. And if a judge overrules that, the judge is going to be like, all those ownerships are going to be like, we want our points. And, Churchill's probably going to be like, no, you can't have your points. And they'll probably get taken to court over that. And it's just going to mess. Like, if they let it get into the 50-point and 100-point preps, and then all of a sudden they say, oh, yeah, Baffert horse is going to earn points, these ownership groups are going to freak out. Because, like, I really hope that it stands firm and he can't get a horse in. But like, I have a feeling that's what's going to happen, is we're going to be getting into like the Santa Anita Derby, and all of a sudden Baffert's going to be allowed to earn points, and all of a sudden you're going to have these 3 or 4.
It's going to happen, dude.
Yeah,
I really do think it is.
Yeah, you're going to have like these 3 or 4 horses. Yeah, you're going to have these 3 or 4 horses who currently aren't, like, nobody's going to think you're going to get in because they don't have points. Who then all of a sudden have enough points to get in because the ownership groups bitch and get their points back. And then you're taking away spots from other other connections who hopefully, they're running their horses the right way.
So let me ask you this, because I'm unclear on this. So let's say like Corniche, for example, he's a big name. What happened? Can Bob Baffert just hand him over to the assistant trainer? I mean, what's going on?
No, he can't hand him over to the assistant
trainer. Or can he pretend, can we sign off something under the table? Can
No,
Guido
so
Guido
he has to
Carmine
go to
Tartaglia get involved and get something?
he has to go to a different barn completely. He can't go to
Fine.
anybody he can't go to anybody who's employed by
Okay, but you don't
Baffert.
think Baffert has some friends with him?
Oh,
in his
I'm
barn?
sure he does. I'm sure, and
Jimmy the Greek down the street.
I've talked to a couple people about it before that like I don't know. I honestly don't know the rule about how long a horse has to be in a barn before you can transfer it or any of those things. But I mean, I don't know what's stopping a connection of like Corniche before the Santa Anita Derby. Say like he's going good. They transfer him they transfer him like 2 days before the entries are drawn.
That's what I'm talking
So
about.
then and then
that horse is going to find its way into the Derby.
yeah,
he
probably. I mean, there's a reason he's the Vegas. I mean, he's still the Vegas favorite, I believe. If he's not the favorite, he's close.
I mean,
but yeah,
it's the Breeders' Cup. Yeah, he's going to. I'd be
Right.
shocked if he doesn't find a way in. Whether it's Bob's,
right. It's either that or if the ownership stay with Bob and like they don't, Churchill really doesn't let them run and they like the judge like they stand firm and nothing happens. Bob's just gonna point an armada towards the Preakness. Like Bob's gonna have like 5 horses running the Preakness, and it's just gonna be ridiculous because nobody, all of a sudden that race is gonna be like unbettable because you're gonna have him point instead of pointing horses to the Derby, he's gonna point his 4 or 5 horses to the Preakness, and it's just gonna be the rest of the Triple Crowns. It's gonna be ridiculous.
Ladies and gentlemen, what an honor! Dennis Trusty has joined on commenting. This guy's a legend of the game. If you're not familiar, incredible.
I said that.
Nick Feldman, good job.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with
everything
you,
you're saying, Nick.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean,
they gave him Life is Good, and Life is Good is still. I hope he wins the. Personally, I hope he wins the Pegasus, but we'll see.
Yeah. And hey, we want some comments. What's everybody think about? If Corniche gets dished to some barn and there's going to be some money changing hands with, we're going to put him to some random barn. That's not going to happen. Well, that's already shaked hands with 27 people on the side. 15 mafia members over there.
Yeah, it all depends though, and it depends on when they do it because you're going to get, like I said, like these. Like the 10 point preps mean nothing. I mean, Corniche probably won't be ready to go till mid-March anyway, just because he's already got he should already have 30 points, and that's where I think it would get messy. Is here you have a horse who should have 30 points already, which in most years 30 points is more than enough to get in. And if they randomly decide the rule, hey, Baffert can run horses, then all of a sudden you're going to have that ownership group complaining that they want their points. And 30 points is enough to knock, 30 points is enough to knock horses out of the ranking and get a spot. So I hope it doesn't come to that, but I mean, with the shit show it's been the last, 14 months in the sport, won't surprise me.
14 years actually, but I think and then with Medina Spirit dying on the track, which was tragic as hell.
That
just kind of put the exclamation point on that thing. But and maybe not related at all. But
and they still haven't really made the official ruling yet on the Derby.
Of course they haven't, because there was also 475 deaths of horses at Santa Anita.
I know.
It was just incredible. I mean, this is like the Charles Manson of horse racing.
I hope he. I personally, at this point, I really don't care who they give the Derby to. I do think overall, though, I do think he won't get it, at least based on the Eclipse Award ballots that I've seen from people who actually have votes. But I do think Medina Spirit does deserve 3-year-old of the year, and he won't get it. But I do think he deserves it That was
one of the tough. If you're a voter, that was one of the toughest.
Yeah, and I said it right after he finished second in the Classic. He won. He just won 3-year-old of the year. He beat Hot Rod.
Dude, you said I remember that conversation.
He's beat Hot Rod. He beat Hot Rod Charlie multiple times. He beat Essential Quality multiple times. He beat Man the Loon when they faced. He beat everybody else. And I get that. I get Essential Quality was ultra consistent. But I don't see how unless they take the Derby win away from him before that voting starts, I just don't see how you can't give it to him. And it's unfortunate because the way that I've been seeing people post their Eclipse ballots, he's not going to get it. And, it's not like I'm not, I really, it's like I hate to see Baffert get it, but he was a game little horse. And it's unfortunate what happened to him.
It's not Medina Spirit's fault that Baffert was involved.
Exactly. It wasn't the horse's fault. And the horse is ultimately, like, he did get paid the ultimate price for it. But like even the connections, if they didn't, not saying they didn't know what he was doing, because I'm sure they did, but you had a
clean program there,
right? You had a feel good. You had this very, you had a horse that pedigree wasn't fantastic, that had the heart of a champion, and he just didn't,
Yeah, man.
he beat every.
Like I said earlier, we did the top 25, top 10 lists all year. Medina Spirit was on the radar the whole time, never quite like at the top, always right there. And then, he won the Derby. He was big in big races. What else do you want from him?
Right.
Other than the fact that it was Baffert, and then obviously all the speculation that came with that.
Yeah, and it was just all the sketchy shit Baffert did.
He's blowing more rails off a urinal than a freaking stripper.
It was just a lot of weird shit he did with the horse, like scratching him out of the Pennsylvania Derby because he drew post 9.
Yeah,
and then he runs him in post 9 in whatever race was it the Pacific Classic. He ran from the outside. It was just a bunch of weird shit.
Maybe it's that Baffert's a little nervous about people urinating in the stalls and everything else.
Yeah, that whole thing is like I really don't like Baffert, but I wish they did. I hope the horse does get some appreciation at the Eclipse Awards. But I do understand the voters that are just going to be like, no, we're not voting for any Baffert, because personally, that's how I would go. I wouldn't put any Baffert on the ballot, but like it's hard to. It's hard.
I hope Bob, by some backdoor reasons, ever sees anything I say about him, because he's just a scumbag. He's a scumbag. Trusty bringing the Manson as a Hall of Famer. Yes, but it could be argued, because he's not a Mount Rushmore of serial killers, but yeah, he's solid. He didn't kill anybody personally, which kind of takes it away.
Yeah, so it's just it's a whole unfortunate situation, but I really hope what Churchill rules stands. I would love to see multiple derbies without Baffert in it.
Please. Honestly, the best thing for the sport would be to make him the Barry Bonds or the Mark McGuire. Just end it. Even if you're a fan of Baffert, it has to stop, because look at that. What was that? The late 90s, early 2000s, when Bonds and all them were doing that. Barry Bonds' skull just grew by 12 inches.
Mm-hmm. It was
when he started. By the way, when he started, I know you're a Bonds guy, right?
Yeah, I love Bonds. I know.
Bonds.
He was a Hall of Famer before he did this. Before he did all of it.
175 pounds.
Yeah,
he was a slap hitter, an amazing athlete, a great fielder. He hit for average, great stolen bases, and great speed. He was unbelievable.
Yeah.
He would have been a Hall of Famer on his own, but all of a sudden, at 39 years old, he starts learning how to hit home runs, and his skull grows to 14 inches bigger than ever before, or ever any human being ever. He looks like Cro-Magnon man.
Yeah,
and this is what Baffert's doing, and you know how baseball stopped it, and that I think horse racing should take baseball as an example. Baseball is a much bigger and a lot more invested in that sport, Major League Baseball, than horse racing. Sorry, horse racing guy, but it really is. And what did they do? They chopped the head off at the biggest horse in the industry, which at that time was Bonds and McGuire and those guys. Yeah. And right now it's Baffert. They got to kill him.
Yeah, and he's not the issue is he's not the only one. The issue is that Baffert's the one that is using it to win the biggest races. And that's why Service and Navarro got away with it for years, because they're winning claiming races at like Parks and Monmouth,
right,
for the most part. nobody really cared about service until he started winning graded stakes races with claiming horses. And then all of a sudden it was like
puts it in your face though. You know
right.
what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. Like, yeah, he puts it right in your face, but he's been doing it for so long that everyone's like, oh, okay, it's another grade 1 for Baffert. And it's like, yeah, it shouldn't be like that though.
But the casual fan, and I know this because I got a lot of friends that are just like, they'll tune in for the Triple Crown, maybe the Breeders' Cup if you're lucky. They love Baffert because got the blue goggles and the silver hair, and he just looks like he shits $20 bills, which $100 bills.
And when they only play on those days, like
he's a fun hero. He's a
right. And when you play on those days, you get the prices on them. So they don't. The casual fan isn't seeing him winning 12 grade 1s a year with 11 of them being 3 to 5 or less. The casual fan is seeing him, win the Derby with Medina Spirit at 12 to 1, or winning with Authentic at 9 to 1. Like that's what they're seeing. So all of a sudden, here's this guy who he doesn't always have the favorite, and his horses are winning. But when if you watch the other 99% of the year, it's like, oh, Baffert's horses won the 9. He runs off the screen. What a shocker! Like that's
and you also don't see otherwise healthy horses get carted off the freaking track on a cart dead.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is accepted in the industry right now that shouldn't be. Like I had this conversation I think last year, the year before, with somebody where we were talking about horses coming off the claim and how certain trainers you expect to see a horse improve 15 to 20 buyer points off the claim, and it's like that's not normal. That is not like a horse if a horse has 10 starts and has been running mid 60s, low 70 buyers, and then randomly goes to somebody's barn like Diodoro or Mike Maker and pops off in a couple 90s in a row.
So weird,
that's
right?
that's right. Maybe with a horse with 1 or 2 starts, I can see that, and I think that's kind of why nobody ever questions Baffert, because his horses don't stick around that long. But when you look at some of these horses that are still on the claiming circuit, and it's you're telling me this horse ran three triple digit buyers for Altraz and then gets claimed by somebody else, and now he's back to running 70s, and then Altraz claims him again and he runs a 95, and it's no, that's not normal, but it's become so accepted in our industry that some of these guys are just that much better off the claim that nobody questions it.
All right, I got here comes the ultimate. I'm going to throw this out there. This is a Captain Obvious if you're close to the game, but I don't think a lot of people have touched on this, and I'm actually a big fan, and I'm going to play ignorant here. But outside of, and I see Dennis, you're right. He's talking about Diodoro, and there's a lot of controversy there. I don't know. I'm not close enough to the game to know it, but what I do know is, probably 2 or 3 years ago, you started getting rumblings of Brad Cox and this is the guy, and mysteriously you're getting these, let's say this horse is on a scale from 0 to 100, this horse is a 85. Mysteriously, when it gets into the barn of Brad Cox, it becomes a 95. So what are we doing there? I mean, this is the new Baffert. This is the new Brad Cox is kind of, especially with the Breeders' Cup, he had a great year. I don't want to talk bad about the guy. I'm a fan, honestly. I'm being ignorant. What's going on there? I mean,
I think
these guys clean, or is this just a drug?
My thing is I think there's a difference between the trainers who are using illegal stuff using illegal stuff like Service did and Navarro did, that gets detected as others, that if it pops, it gets detected as other stuff. And then guys who just toe the line and they use a concoction of legal stuff that gives a good result. And I feel like the difference is, you see, usually the horses that are getting illegal stuff, they all run the same way. They all go to the front and they're game as hell and they don't look back. And if they get fronted, they just keep going. And that's how Medina Spirit was. I'm trying to, there's been a few others like that. That's how those drug horses are, though. They go to the front, maximum security. If you just think about all the comments that people said about Medina Spirit, and you look back at all the comments that people said about maximum security, they're the same.
here's a little horse with a small pedigree from small time connections that has a lot of heart. And it's like, you don't get two horses like that. Like those type of horses maybe come around like once in a generation. You're telling me we got
the Seabiscuit story,
right? Like we got two that did the exact same thing.
Weird, yeah.
It's like right.
You watched the whole prep season; they weren't
right,
the best horse out there at any point, at any stretch of the imagination, and then all of a sudden they were.
Yeah, weird. It's like, well,
kind of like Barry Bonds hitting 39 or 80 fucking home runs at 400 years old.
Yeah,
and
that's my thing with Cox. Like, because I've been very critical of Nick's go. Because I still, to the life of me, I don't know how he turned that horse around. That horse was done. But now,
ever.
Right. He couldn't do it with he didn't do it with Hidden Scroll. As soon as he got Hidden Scroll, everybody was like, "Oh my God, here's your next Breeders' Cup Mile winner," and he sucks still. He's got Concert Tour debuting tomorrow for him. We'll see how he does it. We'll see how what he's done with Concert Tour, but it's like his horses don't run that style that I think he's I think he's using illegal stuff. I think he's doing what a lot of other trainers definitely do, and they have a concoction of legal stuff that is all in the rules, but he's just, he knows what to do to give, his team knows what to do to give him the best result. And I think that's what he does. And if it's within the rules, fine. Essential quality comes from off the pace. You don't see those horses like that come from off the pace if they're being pumped with illegal stuff. So until he's legitimately caught, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna say anything bad about Cox, but you see some of these other guys where
we need a Cox. The industry needs Brad Cox.
Right. Well,
every man. He looks like mere you. He's a young guy.
There's just he
doesn't
every
look
now
like
and again,
with his stupid white hair and his stupid blue goggles. He looks like he's just a piece of shit. He's the most hateable person that's ever existed in any sport.
You just get these guys that when they pop, like Juan Vasquez at Naira right now. Every single one of his horses that win, he's batting 60% right now in Naira or something like that. He doesn't have a ton of starters, but all of his horses that win the exact same way. They go to the front and they just put the field, they put the field in the ground. And it's that's not how, and you look at it and it's okay, this horse made no sense on paper. And all of a sudden the horse improves his buyer by 35 points and just buries a field. And then next time out, the horse probably won't move a step, but will go off at 2 to 5. So Vinny, create.
Let's talk. Let's look at this. What's Mike talking about here?
Golden Policy. Oh, I have no idea.
No comment, Mike.
I have no idea about any of that.
I can comment on this one. Dennis is talking about playing ignorant about Brad Cox. Ignorant, or am I actually ignorant? Play ignorant, or am I actually? Yes, I'm ignorant. So
doesn't this
good call, Dennis? We wouldn't expect anything less of you.
Doesn't this convo show a good Chad Brown? Yes, and this is, and I still, and even Chad though,
except for the grammar training misspelled, Nick. Double check that.
But you look at even Chad Brown horses aren't finishing like they did a few years ago. And I really right, but he's still same with
pulled back on it.
But same with Fletcher, same with Fletcher though.
The Lance Armstrong program pulled back.
You look at you look at Chad Brown and Todd Fletcher, and they're still winning. They're still finding ways to win races. They're not winning races like they used to, but they're still finding ways to win races with horses, and they're still getting very good horses. And it's those are there's two guys that they're probably are their barns doing stuff? Maybe, but is it illegal? Probably not. I don't think Chad. I would be hard pressed to say Chad's barn is doing anything illegal. I did know that Cox's wife is I believe.
Yeah, so
I don't even believe she's a former. If I remember correctly, I don't even know if she's a former vet. I believe she is a vet, and I believe she's his vet for his barn in Louisiana, I think, or Oakland. One of those two tracks, I believe she is still actively his barn's vet. which has always been a weird, which has always been like a
That's
weird
an
thing.
advantage.
Yeah, which has always been a weird thing. But again, though, like, you
There's
know,
a documentary on Netflix right now about cyclists like the Lance Armstrong. I brought it
Yeah.
up just as a joke, but one of the, I think he worked with Armstrong for a long time. I mean, he was also involved in the testing agency that was responsible for disqualifications and all that stuff. And it was like, oh, by the way, Lance Armstrong passed 50 of these tests, but his doctor was one of the people who approved the tests.
Right. Well, like I think it was like
Same
after
thing.
after the Derby this year when they were interviewing trainers and other trainers were commenting. I think it was like D. Wayne Lucas like said like whoever found that result should have thrown it away and it should have never gotten out. And it's like that's how the sport has been for 40, 50 years. Like they don't, and this is why Justified's test, he's another one. Here you talk about another brave horse that went to the front and refused to get past. Like they all run the same way. And, you know, it would be different if they all ran different styles, but all of these horses that seem to get popped, all
And I'm
do
sure
the
you can
exact
name like,
same
you know,
thing.
Charlatan and a couple from last year that were kind of in the same ilk that
Right, you know, and like
same thing.
and it makes you it makes you wonder like how far back it goes with Baffert, and it makes you wonder like it just is a huge black eye in the sport because I mean I think behind like California Chrome, Zenyatta, and Winx, who are probably like the top 3 fan favorite horses of all time, like you have American Pharaoh, and it's like here's another smaller statured horse that went to the front and was always brave. What do you, like you'd hate to say it wasn't legitimate, but at the same time, kind of a coincidence that, you know, when the sport really needed a Triple Crown winner, we got one.
Dude. Yeah,
we got one, and he did it that way. And like, you know, even like
and Justify was bombing home runs into San Francisco Bay like Barry Bonds.
He was, you know, Justify was not. There was a reason that the Curse of the Apollo was a legit thing because like it was hard to do. Like it was almost impossible to do to have a horse that didn't debut at 2 all of a sudden be ready to run in the Triple Crown races. Like just ridiculous. I mean, and like and then he fails you know, it comes out after he failed the drug test for the Santa Anita Derby. It's, you know, it's just like, and that got buried. It's just like that. Like, how long is he actually has this been getting buried by him? And like now all of a sudden it comes out and we're like, and we don't really know. The sport doesn't seem to know what to do with it. And we even let him dictate the narrative on it.
Well, here's the thing though, like the people that I know that really love the sport and care about it, which is, you know, I don't know, 10 or 12 people that I talk to all the time that are big into the sport, are fans, and also into the sport for whatever reason they're into it. But I think everybody's in agreement that Baffert's bad for the game at this point. Like, and I'll go back to it. I know it sounds repetitive, but why can't they just make him the Barry Bonds? I mean, Barry Bonds,
he holds too much. He just holds too much. He just holds too much weight. You know, it's kind of like how Naira keeps dragging their feet on Linda Rice. You know, Linda Rice wasn't doing as like, you know, she wasn't pumping her horses full of drugs, but she knew every other horse that was going to run in the race before she entered hers. And it's like, you know, but like they fill spots, you know, they fill races. If all of a sudden, you know, you don't have like just if Baffert's not getting the horses and, you know, Baffert's got some of the top, you know, like the top ownerships in the game giving them horses. If they're not getting Baffert horses, then they're probably going to go east and give those horses to Pletcher, Mott, Chad Brown. So then all of a sudden you hear, like, not only are you losing a guy who gets horses here, but you're losing a guy who's bringing good horses here. So all of a sudden your quality of race goes down, and then your track suffers. And then all of a sudden they're not making as much money as they should. It comes down to greed.
But here's the thing. If you cut the head off at Barry Bonds. I'm going to go back to Major League Baseball. If you like baseball, you'll understand. If you don't, then learn it. It's the same exact scenario. You have to kill it. You have to kill the snake at the head, cut the head off with Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, blah, blah, blah. It's Baffert. You have to prove a point. And then
But-
everybody else, the Brad Coxes and these guys, they will pull back because Brad Cox is, what is he, 35 years old, 30 years old? I don't know what he is.
Oh yeah,
And he's not going to risk the rest of his career on a horse to drop a horse like Baffert has, who's 60, and maybe it's worth it for him.
Right. Well, I mean, even baseball. How long did that go on in baseball before they actually cut the head off?
1,000 years. I
Right.
mean,
They let it go until we had, until Sammy Sosa had 60 plus home run seasons
until there was a shortstop breaking Roger Maris's record. I mean, which is like it held up for 50 years, then all of a sudden, I can't remember the very average shortstop for the Rockies, if somebody wants to comment on that, hit like 57 home runs and was threatening to beat Maris's record, who is clearly a Hall of Famer. And everybody was slapping 55, 65 home runs around the yard.
And that's what, that's what it took, though. It took until it really got out of hand. And I think part of the issue why they haven't done it yet is there's not as much national focus on racing, where it's we don't have as many, we have the Triple Crown and we have the Breeders' Cup. The prep races for people who are in the sport and into the sport are a big deal. And you have a couple other grade ones throughout the year that are a big deal. But really, you have the Triple Crown races and you have the Breeders' Cup. And maybe you can count the Haskell and the Travers in that. So you really have 4 or 5 days of the year that the national spotlight is on horse racing.
Yep.
And
really, honestly, I think it's the Triple Crown and Breeders' Cup.
Right.
Anything else
you have to be
kind of involved.
You have 4 or 5 days that it's on, that it's on here, and it's on the national news. These people aren't seeing these guys, win 35% of races in just demolishing other fields. And that was the difference. I think that's the difference with baseball, is that baseball is one of the, it still is one of the biggest sports in America, and the games are happening every night, and it seemed like every headline was home run, home run, home run. And it was okay, well, yeah, we made money out of this, but now the game, there's just no integrity left.
No, it was gone
in the game.
And it came that year
when you had so many people who cared about it.
We're all hitting 60 home runs.
Mm-hmm. You had so many people that cared about it, though, that they started finally losing fans. Where horse racing, since in reality, it all revolves around gambling. The gamblers, we've just learned to put up with it. We know, if we're going to toss a Baffert horse on a big day in a grade 1 on the dirt, we know we're taking a risk. We know that. We know, know we can't be salty when we get beat, because we know. And it's the gamblers have just learned to adapt with it, and that's kind of why. That's another reason it's gone on so long, is that instead of refusing the bet, people have tried. I think last year on Preakness Day, everybody on Twitter was we're not playing, we're not playing, we're not playing. And then they set a record for the most, they set a handle record.
Yeah, please.
It's right.
It's up to the industry. The fans can't stop anything, and neither can people like you or me.
It comes down to the track ownership and the racing commissions, if they care. But
the little bit of audience that we do have, though, and I think we have a little bit of a voice, is I don't think there's any risk in just cutting the head off of Baffert right now.
I don't think there's a risk.
Even the only, because the casual fan won't miss him. Where's the gray-haired guy with the blue goggles? They don't even know his name until they
but it's not about the fans, though. It's it's the California Racing Board members who all have shares in horses that Baffert trains.
Okay, well, that's all.
What
crooked. I mean, it's
right, exactly. It's crooked. But until
take one big day and end it.
You're right. But it's going to take to those people. Right. But it's going to take until those people are okay with their pockets getting a little lighter for a little bit. And it was just like it was in baseball. Baseball, once they cut the head off.
That hurt.
Right.
Baseball.
Right.
Dude, I grew up in the 90s, and nobody was hitting 40 home runs was a big deal in the 90s.
Right.
Somebody hit 40 home runs. It was whoa. Did you hear about, whoever hit 42 home runs that year? And then all of a sudden, by the end of the 90s, it was 10 dudes hitting 60 home runs. Really?
Right. But then that's the thing, though. It's all of ownership in baseball took a hit when they cut the head off the snake. It just took a long enough time for them, for everyone to convince them that, hey, the game will bounce back. But it seems like
Exactly.
that's not. It's
Do you
but
not
it,
think it'd bounce back with more integrity and be bigger than ever?
I
if
do
you
too.
just cut the head off.
I do too. It's just
There'd be like a
and like
dark
this
for the
is like
people you're talking about that would suffer a little bit. You'd have like a tough few months,
and
and
that's
then
the thing,
everybody
though.
would appreciate the game more, and it'd be like, okay,
Right. Well, it took
it's
baseball
stupid.
what, like 10 years. It took baseball what, like I mean, like it took. I mean, I grew because I was like growing up in like the late '90s, early 2000s, and it's like when I first started hearing about the steroids. What, it took like another 10 years, like when it was like really public that like, hey, these guys are definitely doing that.
So,
Like,
so did
so
you stop liking? Did it change your opinion as a kid over the
no,
time? 'Cause you
no,
probably
it
didn't
didn't.
get
I
it.
mean, but like as a kid though, I mean, that's part of the reason that Barry Bonds is still like one of
Yeah,
my favorite players of all time because
Me too, as a
I'd watch
teenager, I
I'd watch a
think I
game
was
and I
a
know
baby,
he's
but-
going to hit 2 or 3 home runs in the Cubby Cove, and it
Oh,
was
dude,
great.
it was incredible. Yeah,
It was
incredible
awesome.
to
I
watch.
always wanted to go out there and run a kayak and like hope to catch a home run ball. Like
Exactly.
I remember
Dude,
we
get
used
it.
to go to
100%.
I used to go to Orioles games all the time growing up, and Palmero used to hit 2 or 3 a game when we went. Like this is great.
Yeah.
But like that's the that's the
He
difference.
also
though.
jabbed 2 or 3 needles a week, so
Right.
it's the same thing with horse racing. Like, I mean, come on, dude. Like,
Right. The issue
the
is
thing is, a winning horse or a winning. I mean, take it back to the '90s. Like somebody mentioned Griffey or somebody like that. He hit 45 home runs or something. That is just as magical as 65 home runs by Barry Bonds and his swollen head.
Mhm.
All right.
Agreed.
It just
The issue is that you need the way that that new fans seem to get hooked in horse racing is falling in love with one horse. And this is the difference. Whereas in baseball, like you can cut like you have a guy who, hey, he might have a down year or two, but his career's probably like if he's good, he's probably going to play for 15 years, and you got a lifelong fan after that. Same with basketball, same with football. Like look how many football fans there are just because they either love or hate Tom Brady.
Yeah, true.
But when you have horses that only run for in reality,
and let's say that
Tom
Tom Brady came out of the locker room this year and all of a sudden was like ripped and big. It'd be like, and all of a sudden like faster than he ever was.
Right.
It'd be like, no,
right.
Tom.
But like
so,
you still have all these,
and that's what
right.
Bonds did, and that's what Baffert does.
Right, but you have all these.
My
The
point.
issue is here you have all these casual fans who get into the sport because they watched Medina Spirit run 3 times on national television, and now he's their favorite horse. But now he's not running anymore. So when you take away the possibility of a superstar horse, all of a sudden you're going to lose the I don't think you would lose the casual fan, but I feel like that's what the mindset is because like, hey, we don't have a legitimate superstar anymore in the sport. Who is gonna kind of like UFC? This has always been my issue with UFC.
Human cockfighting.
Right. They build people up, and then they finally face somebody that's a legitimate fighter. They might be in a little trouble. Ronda Rousey, for example. Ronda Rousey's first 8 fights were against people who were against women who were They were part-time fighters. Like I think the one girl she beat before she lost to Holly Holmes was like a part-time school teacher. And it's then they finally put her up against a legit fighter in Holly Holmes and she gets rocked. But they built her up to be this superstar because they kept feeding her fights, and that's kind of what racing's been doing at least the last decade is like, hey, we're going to let you get away with this because we know if somebody falls in love with if we can get 100,000 people to fall in love with X horse, all of a sudden we have we have this fan base for life. And I'm not saying that American Pharaoh was juiced, but how many fans even on racing
God, I hope
Twitter,
not, dude.
that was
back before I accused everybody.
Right. But even on racing Twitter, if you talk to people, there are a good amount of people in the game who were not in the game before, who were not prominent people who wanted to be in horse racing before they saw American Pharaoh win the Triple Crown. And I hate to say it, but that's what the sport needed. You had a sport that was kind of teetering, didn't really have a ton of fan base, and here comes American Pharaoh. And all of a sudden, he wins the Triple Crown going away. He wins the Breeders' Cup going away. And it's okay, was he a good horse? Absolutely. But like not, was it maybe a little bit fixed? Probably.
I hope
It brings
not.
it brings fans in.
I'm going to be innocent to that one.
It just brings fans in when you have a superstar horse, because you don't see horses anymore. Like, as much as I didn't like California Chrome, at least Chrome ran 20 plus times, and like,
Yeah,
he always he was really good for the sport, and that's why he has a ton of fans. But they don't make, like, you don't see big name horses do that anymore. You see big name horses run maybe 12, 13 times in their career, maybe at best. And most of them run 7 or 8. Like, what? I think Essential Quality ran maybe 10 times total in his entire career, and now he's retired. And it's because the real money in the sport's in the breeding. So
100%, dude, yeah.
it's like, if you can't build up superstar horses, what's the next best thing? Oh, you let one horse get dominant and you don't care how it happens.
It's exactly what Nick said right here. Watch.
Yep.
College basketball. You go in as back in the day, you used to play for 4 years, and you get some kind of team and make a team out of it. And sometimes you get some kind of revolutionary good team, and you play as a team for 2 or 3 years. And that's the same thing. Like, now it's like
one and done.
1 or 2 years and it's over.
Right.
One and done. You go to the NBA, and who wouldn't, with the zillions of dollars that the kids get paid?
Exactly.
Just like a stud, you get the zillions of dollars for being a stud, and you get out of the way.
Yeah, it's the same with horse racing. I mean, like, not saying Authentic was juiced or anything, but there you had a horse who always seemed to get over, but he always seemed to get overbet though. Like, he would not overbet. He always seemed to get overlooked. He wasn't the favorite he beat the favorite in the Derby. The Preakness, he loses as the favorite. He comes back. He wasn't the favorite in the Breeders' Cup. Like,
dude, that horse cost me a bunch of money.
Right. But like, there's a horse that, like, there's a horse though that people legitimately ended up liking, because he just, he was he wasn't the typical, like, oh, he's going to be, like, he wasn't the typical 1-9 Baffert. So here's a horse that people ended up liking, and nope, he's retired after 3. Same with, like, Tis the Law's career didn't end the way they wanted it to. He got hurt, but like, their careers are so short now that, like, it's really hard to like a horse. And like, a lot of people are still rag on me for Tacitus, but at least he made
here it is.
Right, at least he made it past his 3-year-old year. My other favorite horse before,
dude, you got to promise me something. With every episode, Tacitus has to come up,
right? But like, I mean, that's why. Like, you look at some of my favorite horses are horses they didn't always win, but when they did, they ran okay. Miss Temple City was my Tacitus before Tacitus ran. I love that. I love that mare. She ran great. Like, every time she ran, except for a couple times she ran at Saratoga where she just hated the track and she ran terrible. But like, it's hard to find these horses that run more, at least the top tier horses that run more than 10, 11 times now. So you get 1 year of them, and then all of a sudden they're gone. And it's hard to retain like casual fans like that.
Yep. And for me, it was Ghost Zapper, and I've got, Empire Maker and a couple others that go back and are my favorites ever.
Curlin's one that Curlin's probably when I really started to really love horse racing. I got to see him win the whip
success as a stud too. So yeah, you get both.
Right. Curlin, Gunrunner. Like, Gunrunner's another one. Like, he ran a full 3-year-old and a full 4-year-old campaign. Great. Like, we very rarely get that anymore at a top level. Like, they run,
because they'll die on the course with Bob.
Right,
Beffert,
but that's the issue.
Petting the thing as the torture chamber him to death. Go ahead.
Well, that becomes the issue though, is that, like, even when you get horses that are good, you get well, it's like, oh well, I don't want to run them against the Baffert horse, so they take second, because like at a certain point, losing so many times hurts your stud value. So then these horses just retire. These horses have been retiring early because it's like, well, I'd rather retire with this than keep running against them, or they end up being worth too much at stud. So it's just it's just tough that, like, that's how the sport's been. And I hope maybe one day we can get back to these horses running 20 times in a career. But I don't see it.
There you go. That's a good comment.
Yeah,
Zenyatta, same thing for me.
Yeah.
You know,
I remember I was there the day Rachel won the Wood at Saratoga as a 3-year-old filly, and at the time I didn't realize how ridiculous that was. But you talk
Dennis,
about
check
that
your
now.
Twitter messages, by the way.
Yeah, like you talk about that now. That like a 3-year-old filly won the Woodward, the Grade 1 Woodward, like against older horses. Like it's unheard of. We will probably never see that again in our lifetime. Like that is an unbelievable thing. Rags the Riches, not only did Rags the Riches beat Curlin then ended up being, Curlin's arguably one of the top 20 horses of all time. Yeah, I mean, Secretariat was a monster.
Secretariat, yeah, that's a freak show. That's a true
she
freak show, and that was before, I think, and maybe who knows? Maybe he had a vet that was unbelievably ahead of his time, but
he was a monster. I mean, the time I will be shocked if his Belmont time has ever beat. It would just disgusting.
Just awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. I Want Revenge. I liked that horse too. I liked I Want Revenge as well. He was that was a tough one. Yeah.
Secretariat will stand forever. Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
And but they don't make horses like one of my every time I see the question asked, I always comment on it. Like, what's one horse you wish you could have seen race live? Mine's Spectacular Bid. Horse was like he ran so many times and he ran great in like every single start. And like you just don't see him built like that anymore. We get 10 starts out of him and it's like, oh, okay, that's it. And it's like you do see you see these claiming some of these claiming horses that are very good on the claiming circuit run that many times. I mean my buddy Steve, who does Dynasty with me, loves a horse named Manifest Destiny. Absolutely loves the horse. The horse doesn't always win. When he does, it's at a price. But that horse has made probably 30 to 40 career starts at least, I'm gonna guess. But the casual fan does not want to watch claiming races. They want to watch.
What you just said kind of outlines like the fandom of us, whatever you want to call us. I mean, I guess weirdos that actually like the game, because Manifest Destiny is important to your buddy, and that's good. And that needs to happen to keep interest by the casual fan or the capper who's trying to take it very seriously. But you have to have those things, and I hate to assassinate Baffert, but this is the reason why that's important. There's more people like your guy with Manifest Destiny or me with Ghost Zapper when I was freaking 20 or 15 years old, whatever it was. That's way more important than the guy with the blue goggles at the freaking winner's circle at Kentucky Derby every other year.
Right.
That guy, nobody will remember him in 4 years. If you blackball him now, he's Barry Bonds. He's blackballed. It's over. It's it's no more Band-Aid on the wound, no more Band-Aid on the gunshot.
I hope they do it, and I hope they I hope we get the governing. I hope we get the governing body that really cares, because until even if you get rid of Baffert, though, it's just going to be somebody else until they actually take a stand on what's happening. Because right now it's Baffert, but it very easily it very easily could
the thing is about killing Baffert, cutting the head off, like we said 100 times earlier, is that it takes guys like Cox and those guys that they're younger, they got a lot of years in front of them. They're not gonna take the same gamble.
Well, you would hope. I mean, I think a lot of people
end with it.
I mean, a lot of people said that about Service and Navarro too, and here we are a few years later, where everyone was like, "Oh, well, they got caught and they're done. This is gonna make people think twice," and it's arguably just as bad as it was.
But the Kentucky viewer who's watching,
right,
blue goggles guy doesn't know who Service is. They don't.
Right. They don't. Right. Exactly. And it's
but they do know who Baffert is, and if you put it, that would actually make Sports Center.
Oh yeah,
Jason Service didn't make Sports Center.
Right. And then I think the other issue. I think the other issue is if they do that with Baffert, they need to make sure that the narrative stays that this was solely this was solely his doing and nobody else in the sport is doing this. Because the other issue that other sports don't have that they have is that you're going to have especially PETA, you're going to have every animal rights organization in the world looking at you if you say if you try to cut the head off of Baffert and you don't keep it that this was just Bob Baffert, like you just open up a giant can of worms. And I think that's why these racing boards have just kind of let this go, is like, it's not like, if they can still make money and not have to deal with massive confrontation about it and just have to deal with the gamblers like us are like bickering about it, they'll deal with it. Right. Because if for some reason they did that and the narrative spun that like every horse in horse racing is being drugged and all these trainers are drug trainers. I mean, there's a few. I mean, I think Dennis just said, Miller's assistant, I believe he's talking about Peter Miller. Like, he's one. Yeah, he's another one. And it's like, right, like he's another one. And it's just like, it's disgusting. But if you cut the head off of Baffert and you make it so you have to do it, like, if you don't make it that it was just solely Bob Baffert, like, it's just going to open up a can of worms, and you're just going to see these tracks get scared of running, and it's going to suck.
Yeah, but when they hammered Bonds and Palmero and all these guys for steroids, all of a sudden guys didn't look like that anymore, dude. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's where Mike Trout kind of looks like that. Well, Mike Trout's a freak. Like, I think he's a natural freak.
Yeah.
You don't see 40-year-old guys all of a sudden growing giant skulls like Bonds.
Right. And you don't see
over because they scared enough people.
Yeah. And you don't see guys getting older and throwing faster like Clemens.
Yeah. Clemens throws 99 miles an hour at 7 years old, whatever.
Yeah.
And I grew up a Clemens guy. I loved Clemens. He was my hero as a kid.
Yeah. It's
you have to kill him. You have to do it. So do it. It's going to be painful for a year. That's it.
I hope they. I really
1 year
hope
after you say it, you'll be like, man, I'm glad that was over.
Yep. I really hope they do, because it's just
You're right. It's not just Baffert. I think everybody knows that.
Right? Oh yeah. I think everybody knows the other trainers that do it. The issue is
destroy Baffert's legacy in his career, who's the greatest of all time. For sure. 100%. Nobody can argue. The greatest of all time trainer. If you ruin his legacy and make him pay for what he's done, I think it's enough to stop everybody else.
I would hope so, because that's like.
And if it's not been good, maybe 3 years later you get a guy like Cox or Chad Brown, and they get busted, and then they go down with the same legacy too. F them too.
Because it's just like it's just like.
If you let them get away with it, it's not even their fault.
Right. And I think a lot of these guys get away with it because, they've been, for the most part, a lot of these guys, though, and unlike what Baffert does and just win the nation's biggest races, a lot of these guys stay in their lane. Like, as much as I bitch about Peter Miller, because I know he's
the biggest scumbag on the planet.
Right. But you know what? He maybe wins 1 or 2 grade ones a year, wins a couple graded stakes, and for the most part, he's just cleaning up the claim. He cleans up and claiming an allowance company out west. Like, okay, like he stays in his lane. So a lot of people bitch about him, but since he's staying in their lane, people have just adapted to, okay, it's a horse getting claimed by Miller, I have to use it. Okay, next. Like, that's the thing.
You got to put the fear of making a livelihood for your family. If your livelihood is threatened, your salary is threatened, your ability to take care of your wife and family, or your husband and family, or whatever it is for you, is threatened, you will stop doing that. If I'm if I like doing crack on the weekends, I'm a crackhead on the weekends. It's fun. It's a good time. I'm not going to do crack on the weekends if I can't have a job or whatever,
right.
So I stopped doing crack.
Yeah, and that's where we need
stop doing that. You have to. There's no baseball players that look like Mark McGwire, dude. I mean, that guy looked like Schwarzenegger for like a.
Yeah, so that's where we need That's where they need a centralized governing body that actually gives a shit.
Shit all over.
Until we get that, nobody kind of like the whole like when Naira was like, oh, Baffert, you can't run your horses here, but Monmouth was like, oh yeah, Baffert, you can come here though. Yeah, you can come here. It's like that. Like no. Like if somebody gets in trouble if somebody gets in trouble in one place and isn't allowed to run,
dumpster fire. Go ahead.
Right, you shouldn't be allowed to run anywhere. Like, and that's how it should be. But because everything's governed by different racing commissions and shit, like nobody's on the same page, and it makes it hard to like Churchill has a ground to stand on because they arguably hold the most popular race in the world. I mean, I'd argue the Kentucky Derby is
No, it is. I think
yeah,
I think it's still
yeah, behind either that or the maybe the Arc in France is, but even that you have they have the Kentucky Derby and they hold all the cards for it. So like they can put their foot down, but
yeah. I think it would really be a big statement if they did that.
Right. And but other tracks need to follow suit. And I think that's what at least Naira has attempted to
Yeah, and if
follow
Monmouth
suit.
doesn't, then
Right. When Monmouth comes out and says, "Oh, Baffert can come
lot.
run here," and then it just then it just undermines what Naira just tried to do. And Naira's arguably they're easily one of the top circuits in the country. I mean, I think they're the top one, but you can argue for other ones if you want, but you have the top, you have one of the top circuits in the country say, "No, you can't run here." And then you have the little guy next door saying, "Oh, no, you can come here. You're fine. Don't worry about it."
Yes.
And it's like that it undermines everybody. It's kind of like in football where you see somebody cuts a player over domestic violence, and then the next day the Cowboys sign him. And it's like, really, guys? Did you not just see? Did you not just see this video that came out?
Yeah.
Right. It just undermines everything.
Ray Rice just hammered some chick in the elevator. Now you're gonna sign him because he runs fast. Same thing.
Right. Exactly. And it's just until they get a governing body that actually is yeah, no, hey, we're suspending this person and they can't run anywhere. It's never gonna change.
It won't.
It's just gonna keep going. And if it's not Baffert, it's gonna be the next guy. But hopefully they kill it, and then we can
horse racing. Important people listening, please. If anybody's important that's listening, because it sure as hell is not me. Please pull the Barry Bonds plug, the Mark McGuire plug, end it. It's over, and you know it's gonna hurt for 6 months. Then it's over. Dude, my blood is just absolutely boiling at this point.
Because their handle will not suffer this year, depending on if there is or is not a Baffert horse. The same amount of money will be gambled on.
A lot of that stuff was exposed. Medina Spirit. A lot of that stuff was exposed, dude. I think a lot of people who, even the casual fan, heard about Medina Spirit. So
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's
not good.
Bad.
That's not a good look. And you know what, dude?
It's not a good look. And the worst part is though, the worst part about that was not even 72 hours before the court ruled in Baffert's favor that they didn't actually inject him. And that was the kicker. That is karma if I've ever heard of it.
You know who else got cleared in court was O.J. Simpson. We'll go ahead and talk about that on another episode.
Okay.
But hey, man. We are over an hour in. We're trying to keep this to an hour. We're cutting it off. Dennis Trusty, anytime, man. I know you're a big hater on the Prophets. Joking. Dennis, call in. Vinny or myself, we're gonna have you on.
Yeah.
We need you on. We want you.
We will. I'll be talking to you, Dennis.
So hey, listen, dude, prep talk with Vinny Blond every Thursday. We're gonna call it Thursdays.
Okay.
I think we're gonna stick to that best we can. And I think it's going to happen most of the time. But through this prep season, it's going to be awesome. Looking forward to it. Vinny, welcome aboard. Anybody else who's got comments or questions, please hit us up. Thanks for tuning in live. Vinny, got anything to close out?
No, the comps next weekend, so look for something next Thursday.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a big one. And let's hope this Derby season is as good as last year, because last year was a lot of fun. I think this year is shaping up already.
Yeah, hey, there's no big. There really at the moment. You don't have the essential quality. Life is good like you did going into in the last year. You have Corniche who hasn't come. You have Corniche who hasn't come back yet. But besides that, I mean, there's a handful of horses. Yeah, there's a handful of horses you could argue that are at the top right now.
Dude, it's gonna be fun.
Life is go or Nick's go. 10 seconds, Nick Feldman. I'm hoping life is good. I really do. I think he's the good. I think he's the goods. That's going to be a heck of a race. Even though I did see today, I don't know. I gotta double check the article. I believe Belmont hero from 2 years ago, Sir Winston, is going to be running in one of the Pegasus races.
I don't know if it's the turf or if it's the Pegasus dirt, but that would be great. That would be a fun story. That's a horse I'd like to see win too.
All right, we're closing out. Accelerate versus City of Light is what that reminds me.
Oh yeah.
That's two of the greats. Dennis, for real, Dennis is working right now, by the way. This tells you the
I don't even know what Dennis does for work, honestly.
I know where he works. I won't mention any names to protect the innocent. But all right, folks. Yeah, every Thursday, rather. Wednesday's the recording day. Vinny's gonna bring you some goods and let's make some money. Hey,
yeah, let's make some money.
Let's do it. Let's go. Next Saturday kicks off the season, and we're gonna go. Vinny, anything else? We're gonna close out.
No, that's it.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. It was fun. Good talk. Peace.